Guys, I'm super excited for the call that we have tonight. Get to do a lot of these. Every Wednesday we have a webinar. This one's a little bit special. I don't think it's very often that we get 3 Olympic athletes at the same time to come on and talk about their story and talk about what they're doing and relate that to USANA. So for today, if you've seen the promotions, hopefully you did, the Olympic mindset is what we're going to be talking about, and really getting through and staying positive through times of adversity. So in talking with Jason, he said, you know what, we have some athletes that are really gung-ho, that really love the USANA products and love USANA and what it stands for, but also have some great messages to share as well. So I'm excited to hear what they have, and I'm going to just quiet myself because I know you're not here to listen to me, but I'm going to turn the time over to Jason Nacy. He heads up our athlete and sponsorship department, and he's going to take us through and kind of do almost like a Q&A with our 3 Olympic athletes who will have him introduce here. And I'm excited. Just get ready to take some notes and be ready to learn. And Jason, I'm going to turn the time over to you.
Perfect. Well, first of all, thanks for having us. I think this is going to be super fun. So real quick, what I'm going to do, I'm going to introduce each of the athletes, and I'll go one by one. And when I introduce you, just to give you athletes a heads up, I'll ask you what your favorite USANA product is, and we'll go from there. So first, we have Jessica Long. She's one of the most decorated Paralympic athletes ever. She has 23 Paralympic medals, 13 of them are gold, and she has a whopping 30 world medals, with 24 of those being gold. And she's the youngest competitor on the U.S. Paralympic team, or she was the youngest competitor on the U.S. Paralympic team at age 12. Welcome, Jessica. Super glad to have you here. And real quick, I also want to say, Jessica is our newest member of the USANA athlete family. So everybody give her a big welcome. And why don't you tell us what your favorite product is real quick, Jessica?
Yeah, I love all things skincare. So I love the Celavive, the exfoliating mask scrub. That's what I've been using a lot right now.
Perfect. And Jaden Cox, he was recently awarded the John Smith Award, which is, from what I understand, probably one of the biggest achievements you can get as a wrestler. It's the USA Wrestling's Freestyle Wrestler of the Year. He's a 2-time world champion and Olympic medalist. Welcome, Jaden. Why don't you tell everybody what your favorite USANA product is?
What's going on, you guys? Well, mine's actually changed. So mine was like the health pack, but now it's the NutriMeal, the protein shakes, especially with going up in weight. So definitely love that, getting on the go. And when I can't eat anymore, I can drink some more. So it's definitely helping me out, and I think it's working out. It's working. It's getting there. So it's doing its job.
Looking good, man. Looking good. Our next athlete, Sam Pedlow, he was the most improved player in the FIVB in 2017. It's a mouthful. Sorry if I screwed that up, Sam. He's represented Canada in over 75 international events, and he and his teammate were the 2018 Beach Volleyball Commonwealth Games silver medalists. Welcome, Sam.
Thanks, buddy.
And why don't you tell the audience what your favorite USANA product is?
Favorite product for daily use is definitely the probiotic. Got to keep that stomach healthy, and I got a little bit of a sensitive stomach. But I got to say, with all the traveling we do during the season, Pure Rest is definitely a go-to. Try and reset that, that internal clock, and get on the right time zone as quick as we can.
Nice. So right off the bat, one of the reasons I thought of this webinar and having it about the Olympic mindset was actually your story, Sam. So I'd like to start with you if we could. It's just because, last Olympic cycle, so close, heartbreaking, and then, going into Canada, pulling out of the Olympics before the whole pandemic and before they decided to push it back. So if you wouldn't mind jumping in and telling us a little bit about, how that was, how you coped with that, how you're coping with it now, because that's crazy.
Yeah, well, I mean, to make a long story short, 2016, I wasn't really the Olympics weren't even really on the horizon for me. I was just a good volleyball player. I was playing on internationally, but I wasn't in a position where I was going to be able to make the Olympics. But then as that year progressed, my partner and I started to, I think with none of that pressure and none of those expectations, we really started to play well above the level that we've been playing at for the past 2 seasons. And we kind of snuck ourselves into one of those backdoor routes where there was a possibility that if we won this last tournament, which was Davis Cup style, 2 teams from each country competing together, if we won that tournament with this other Canadian team, we earned Canada a second berth. So we were the second team going into that tournament from Canada, the second ranked team. With our compatriots, we ended up winning the tournament. Boom, all of a sudden we have a 1-game shot to make the 2016 Olympics. You know, I'm playing at the time with a guy who's 6 years younger than I am. I'm fairly fresh on the world tour, and we're playing 2 guys who they were kind of what our federation was saying would be the Olympic team. Again, we get into this match, we take it to 3 and we lose by 2 points. So I went from not even thinking about the Olympics to playing at a level that was far above what we were playing at, putting ourselves in a position to be at the Olympics and then missing it by 2 points. And that whole journey was, it was something that I never had planned for. I hadn't structured my mental training to be able to handle a situation like that. And after losing that game, I think all of those emotions and all of those feelings kind of came crashing down at once. And I really broke down. We went to a tournament almost immediately after thinking like, let's just brush this off and let's get out there and kind of get back on the horse. And it was the worst decision we could have ever made. My partner and I, we hated each other. We played extremely poorly and we just weren't able to process that situation. And, you know, it took me a while, but looking back on that event, even on that one day that we lost, I think that's really where like my personal journey and mental growth and development like really accelerated. I don't think if I would have lost that game, I would have learned those lessons. So in the last 4 years, it's been a completely different story. I'm playing with a new partner who actually was one of the guys who beat me to go to the 2016 Olympics. And we've been playing at a level that's keeping us in the top 20 in the world. And this time around, Tokyo 2020 has always been the main focus. It was never an afterthought. That's what we always were targeting was getting to those games. And over the last 4 years, we've worked ourselves to be able to put ourselves in a position to go directly to the Olympics, not having to go through one of these backdoor routes. And that's where we were like 4 weeks ago. We were in the Olympics as the 15th ranked team, albeit there was still some more qualification events. And then we went to Doha, first event of the season, got back, and then COVID was really the main headline around the world. The rest of our season was canceled. 2 days later, Canada announced they were no longer going to the Olympics. And I thought it was over. And then thankfully 2 days later, the Olympics were postponed. And you know, that's where we are today. But like I said, I think all the way back to 2016, missing that Olympics, losing that game is probably the biggest reason that I'm in the position I am today and really has made me into the person I am today, not only on the court, but off the court as well.
So real quick, like the whole COVID-19, these are just weird times for everybody. Like this is crazy. So how was that feeling when Canada pulls out? You think your Olympic dream is over, all because of this crazy virus going around. Like that just seems like the weirdest way to end something like that, and the emotions must have been crazy.
Yeah, I had a lot of conversations with my wife, who's been with me for my entire volleyball career. So she's gone through everything with me, and I bless her heart, she's the best person ever. And we were talking about that, and it was like, this isn't the way I thought it was ever going to go. I'm always preparing myself mentally with my, mental performance coach about, the highs and lows. And the lows was like missing the Olympics. It wasn't that the Olympics got canceled or that Canada decided not to send me to the Olympics. So it was really an interesting experience. And the way I found out was interesting. I go to bed quite early. I'm definitely an early to bed type guy, early to rise. So I didn't even hear the announcement when it first came out. And I also don't check my phone right away in the morning. I don't check social media or the news. I just kind of start my day. So the announcement had been out for like 14 hours before I even realized what was happening. And then I fired up Instagram, and all of a sudden I saw like 75 DMs about like how sorry people are for me. I'm like, what's everyone so sorry about? And then I finally realized that, okay, Canada pulled out of the Olympics. And it was interesting because I'd heard, wrinkles over the last few days that maybe this was going to happen. And I think I'd convinced myself that the only way that Canada would actually pull out of the Olympics is if they felt they had enough leverage with themselves and other governing bodies that the Olympics would be postponed because these federations would be pulling out. And I mean, that's what I was maybe naively hanging on to, which was preventing me from breaking down and being like the last 4 years of training really amounted to nothing because the Olympics were canceled. And then thankfully, 2 days later, the announcement was made that they were going to postpone. But yeah, those 2 days were pretty uncomfortable, potentially having to face the fact that, after all of this training, after years of planning to be in your peak physical condition in 10 weeks, that situation no longer exists.
That's crazy. So, Jessica, how when you started hearing the news of pools shutting down, seasons ending, the potential cancellation of the Olympics, what was going through your mind, and what was your story, along the lines of Sam of how you processed that and how you kind of got through the situation?
Yeah, for sure. It was pretty wild. Here I'm in Baltimore, and I really didn't think we were going to get to a point where the pools were going to shut down. And it was a Monday morning. I had my normal swim practice, and I was heading off to weight training. And my coach just said, "Hey, be prepared. There's a meeting. The governor is gonna have he's gonna talk later today, and we don't know as a club if we're gonna get shut down. So I just want you to be prepared." And it kind of it definitely hit pretty hard because, of course, just what Sam was saying, I was on track for the Paralympics, and the Paralympics, we compete 2 weeks after the Olympic Games. So I was like, okay, if they're already talking about, canceling it, postponing it, it's definitely going to happen for the Paralympics. What is going to happen? And it was definitely that in between, just that feeling of just not sure what's going to happen. And as an athlete, I just, I try to remain positive. I'm still trying to remain positive, but just also at the same time allowing myself to feel every emotion, because, it is really sad. And what's happening right now is really tough, and it's hard to navigate it. And it's okay to feel everything. And I definitely have felt all the emotions. But at the same time, it's been pretty cool just to trust the preparation, right? I'm trusting my training. I've done the work. And right now, I'm just really trying to control the controllables and just taking it each day and sticking to a routine the best that I can.
Yeah, it's crazy. So what are you doing for training now? Yeah. How are you staying fit and also, mentally stay in that place where, I think everybody's on the verge of losing. This has gone on longer than I thought it would. And kind of being isolated in a house it's crazy. How are you dealing with that?
Yeah, okay. I painted the entire living room. I've painted closets, I've painted our fireplace. So I like to be busy. I didn't realize how much I like to be busy. And I'm really used to a busy schedule. I train, it feels like nonstop, morning sessions, afternoon sessions, and swimmers, we train, that morning and night. So I'm really used to being active. And right now what I find, I'm having definitely a hard time falling asleep at night, but I'm just trying to do the best that I can and just controlling again what I can. And that's nutrition. That's, taking time throughout my day to journal and just be grateful, right? Having a gratitude journal and spending time with my husband. But at the same time, if we're being real, it's been really tough, right? I think we all it comes in waves. My mornings are great. I stick to a routine. I make my bed. I try to have, approach it like I'm coming home from practice and I'm having my breakfast and making my smoothies. But then there's also that moment in the afternoon that like it really hits me that, wow, like this is not where I thought I would be. And this is tough, but just trying to stay in that routine has really helped me maintain that positive mindset.
Yeah. It's been wild around my house. I've got 4 kids. So, try to juggle that, the kids, trying to do schoolwork, but not in school. The craziest thing that's happened in my house is that my kids actually want to go back to school. My 13-year-old boy was telling me, man, I never thought I would say this. This was like 2 days ago. He's like, I never thought I'd say this, but I want to go back to school. And I was like, yeah, it's crazy. I mean, all of us are going through different emotions and having to cope in it a different way. So, Jaden, with you going up in weight, because I don't know if most people who are watching this probably don't know how wrestling works in the Olympics. It's a little crazy seeing that they have less weights. How many less weights do they have in the Olympics than in a normal year?
Well, now, because the last 2 years, I would say from 2018 to, actually I should say 2017, it was 8, and then it became 10 for the last 2 years, from 2018 to 2019. So now for the 2020 Olympics, it gets cut from 10 to 6 weights. So everybody's having to find where they want to go, and at this point, they should probably already know. In fact, this I guess postponement might change some people's minds of whether or not they want to get bigger or smaller. So there's a lot of interesting twists and turns that can come from this. So it's pretty interesting for sure.
Well, and that's what's crazy is, so being an Olympic cycle year, you had to choose because your weight class is not in the Olympics. So you had to choose whether you wanted to go down or up, and you chose to go up. How does that affect now that there's no Olympics this year? I mean, that's gotta mess with you a little bit as well, knowing that, okay, you have to reevaluate everything and figure out, are you going to do the same next year? Or like you said, maybe not everybody's going to stay in that same weight class.
Well, I think, for me, it's pretty simple. I'm sticking with 97. I went to 97 for a very particular reason, and that's just to push myself to be the best that I can be. And I believe that the other competitors at that weight, they're amongst the best, not only in the world, but I believe that in some cases, the history of our sport. And in order to be the best, you got to beat the best. And I want to push myself to possibly reach my full potential. That's my goal in this. It's not Olympic medals or world medals. If those things show up, that's great. But my job and what I push for is to push myself to be the best and give everything. Because if I won everything and I never pushed myself to be the best that I could be, I know I'd regret it in my life. But if I know, even if I let's say I never won another term in my life, but I know I drove and pushed myself to try and reach my potential, my best. I think I know I could rest easy in that. But I couldn't rest easy with just, even if I had all the goals in the world, knowing that I never tested myself.
So how do you gauge that with yourself? Because I know that, your mindset versus my mindset, and when I feel like I'm pushing myself versus when you feel like you're pushing yourself that could be, several spectrums wide. So for you personally, how do you judge it when you feel like you're giving it your best?
Well, I think it's a hard thing to judge. And I know that for a fact, because sometimes I'll go to my coach and it's like, all of a sudden I'm like, I'm not doing this, I'm not getting this. And he has to almost like kind of reel me in and just be like, hey, you're doing the right things. Like everything's right. Like, don't worry about it so much. So sometimes I almost put too much of myself to do it. But I think also at the same time, like, I think I never want to walk away from a workout. And it's usually after a workout or something that I can really tell that and I can tell if I did it or I didn't, and there's 2 things I never want to do. I never want to, one, do the last rep as my best rep. I hate that saying when they say last rep, best rep. That's not necessarily true. Like when I'm on a bike and I'm on an Aerodyne and I'm doing a Aerodyne match and whatnot, and I'm rowing as hard as I can. My goal is to drain myself so much and push myself so hard, so my last one could not be any harder than what I'm doing it. and preparing me. And then each time I get better and I get better at it. But also I don't want to get off of it and then be like, you know what, I could have done more. I could have done a lot more. I could have done better. And I just don't want that feeling. So that's one thing. And usually my mind will tell me like, you can do more. And I think as elite athletes, especially all of us as elite athletes, for us to have been doing our sport for so long, you know how to gauge that. You know when you're doing what you need to do and when you're not, or when you can give more and when you can't. And yeah, maybe sometimes you need someone to tell you, but for the most part, your mind and your body, and like, man, I could give a lot more right here. Man, I could push a little bit harder here. And so I think with that and knowing that balance and the experience, it allows for us to know where we gauge that. And everyone is different. Like you said, your mindset might be different from my mindset, but I think everyone is different. And that's the beautiful thing about sport, is that there are a lot of ways to get to, the same goal and the same set, so whatever it is that you need to push or need to find, then it will come.
See, and it's funny you say that, because being in the position I'm at USANA, I work a ton with athletes, and I've talked to, so many different athletes, all elite athletes. And the one thing that I found is that some of them, or not some, like, I feel like most elite athletes don't have this God-given talent that everybody thinks that they have. It wasn't like you were born this amazing wrestler. Look, I know genetics play a little part in that. Like science has shown that, like Michael Phelps, for instance, he has a longer torso, so he's more apt, better for swimming. So I understand some genes playing it, but as far as like this God-given talent, I don't believe that that's what separates elite athletes from the rest of the pack. To me, it's more of a mental thing. And, I feel like elite athletes can push themselves a lot harder, or not necessarily they can push themselves harder, because we all can do that, but have the mental strength to say, I can give more and I'm going to give more, where the rest of us are like, okay, yeah, I gotta hold up. I feel like I'm going to throw up, so I got to stop, where a lot of elite athletes go until they throw up, and it's that pain cave that you don't want to hit.
Yeah, but like I also think, and I agree with you, because I've seen a lot of athletes who are just naturally God-given talent who have failed, and who have failed to reach the heights that we've reached, or haven't or aren't willing to push themselves, because at that point in time, like it literally comes down to two things. And I say two things, but like it comes down to how much do you love what you do, and a choice, And for me, it's like, I love what I do. I love getting up every day. I love getting up early in the morning, going in to get my workout, whether I run there, whether I drive there, whether I bike there, I don't care. I love going in, getting the lift. And then I love knowing that 3 o'clock, in the afternoon, I'm going to come back and I'm going to wrestle somebody. And more than likely through that day, I am going to, like you said, possibly yak and possibly feel terrible. My legs feel like they're about to fall off. My arms won't feel right. Somebody's constantly bashing my face into a wall. Like, I know those things are going to happen, but when you love something, you're willing to do whatever it takes to make sure it's done right. And, you talked about your kids. Like, what would you not give for your kids, for your children? That love, that passion, that desire. You would give anything for them for them to just have everything right, to be everything. Hey, like, I want to give you the best. And I think in the sport of wrestling, and I can only speak for wrestling. I can't speak for swimming or volleyball guys. So I'm sorry, I can't speak for that. So, but in the sport of wrestling that I know and I've gotten to experience, the one thing, because it's not like the NFL, NBA, NHL, whatever, MLB, who get millions of dollars. It's like, the thing about wrestling is that you get yourself. And the thing about sports in general, especially these Olympic sports that you do, is that you find yourself, right? And the way that you find yourself is whenever whenever your back's against the wall, like, are you, like, you figure out who you are as a man, as a woman, when things are rough, when things are tough, when things have changed. Like, who are you as a person? Who are you as an athlete? Who are you willing to become? Who are you wanting to become? And so I think, like, that's something that not a lot of people in this world and in this life will get. They will not get themselves. I think that's why you see a bunch of people with a bunch of money and all this stuff, but like, they haven't found themselves yet, And so I think that's something that we get to experience each and every day. And with that being the case, why would I not give everything to be the best that I could possibly be? Just for me. And that's not a selfish thing. I think that's something that that every person deserves, but also it's a journey that every person has to take on their own.
That's awesome. Couldn't have said it better. Thanks, man. Thanks for sharing that. So Sam, I want to jump over to you real quick. Was there a time in your career, maybe it was early, later, whenever, when you felt like, I don't know if this is worth it, I want to quit? And if you did, why didn't you quit? What was it that pushed you out?
Yeah, so before I kind of transitioned to being a professional beach volleyball player, I actually quit volleyball for 2 years. I played for my college university in Canada for 5 years. We were very successful. We would have won the equivalent of like the state championship three times, got second twice. So we were one of the best teams in the country. It was great, but I was incredibly academically motivated. I wasn't as athletically gifted then as I am now. So I decided to go do my master's. I did my master's in physical therapy, and I stopped playing volleyball for 2 years. It was just, I didn't see a future for myself in the sport. I wasn't that good. I took 2 years away. And in those 2 years, I basically studied and went to the gym. I wasn't very popular with my program, with my peers, because that's all I did. I studied at home and I went to the gym. And after 2 years, I got asked to play in a tournament with a guy who was on the national team. We were very successful in the tournaments we played. And it was kind of at that point where I said, you know what? I don't think I'm done with this sport. And that's kind of where the second half of my career started. I started playing internationally, and that kind of led me for the next 4 years up to 2016. Made a good run there, lost that game, finished out that season, and really had to take a look at myself as to, is this something that I want to continue to pursue? And I think in the sport of beach volleyball, and maybe amongst other Canadian athletes, I'm in this unique position where my backup plan is pretty solid. You know, like we've mentioned, we're not getting paid like MLB or any of the big sports. You know, we're living month to month with a check from the government and hoping I can fly to the next competition. So there's always that thought. After 2016, was feeling pretty depressed at the time, was going through some really challenging times mentally. And, you know, the question of, well, should I just walk away and start working as a physiotherapist was appealing. And it's what I thought I was going to do. But like we've said, I knew at that point I hadn't pushed myself to achieve my full potential. I knew there was some left in the tank. And I wouldn't have been happy leaving, you know, without trying to achieve my full potential. And, you know, your story we just talked about really resonated for me, because when people ask me, like, you know, what are you trying to do? And I always say, I'm trying to become superhuman. I'm trying to put an effort out there that you can't match, that no one can match. And I think the reason that we're all in the position we are today, and what I think is one of my strongest traits, is dedication. I've talked about this before. Motivation to me is pure bullshit. I'm incredibly motivated to be the best volleyball player I can, but there are days that I wake up and we have bad days. I don't think people realize that. Like, we wake up and have bad days. But we have the discipline on those bad days to give 100% effort, whatever that might be. It might only be 80% of our best effort, but I'm still going to hit that 80%. And, you know, I think that the reason we're all here as you know, high performance athletes is we're dedicated to push ourselves to that maximum potential. I say through the bullshit zone, through that 70%, 80% where you could cruise all day long. And if you watch me out on the court, you're like, man, that guy knows what he's doing and he is good. But for me, it's like I'm going through the motions right now. We push through that bullshit zone. And, you know, that's what I try and encourage everyone to do. Is like, when are you going through the motions? You're like, oh, hey, I'm going to go for a quick 5K. Well, like, what are you going to do? Go for a quick 5K at like a medium pace? If you just want to do that to feel good, that's great. But if you have this goal of running a 5K at a certain time, then push through that bullshit zone. Because when you get through that, at the end of the day, you can go to sleep knowing that, like, you gave it your all, and you're going to wake up the next day and say, I'm going to do even better than that, right? And that's what was left for me. Is I knew there was still some left, and there was still things that I knew I was capable of in the sport. And, you know, I'm turning 33 this summer, and like, I'm playing by far the best volleyball I ever have in my life. So now it's a question of like, well, how far can we go? Like it's no longer like, oh man, should I stop? It's like, well, like how much left do I have? How far can I push myself in the pursuit of this, like, quote unquote, being superhuman? So, although we have bad days, I'm like more motivated than ever now at 33 to be the best that I can than I was at 23. So it's definitely an exciting time.
Well, and what I love about that is sometimes people think that just applies to athletes, but I think that mentality just applies to life. It's so important in anything you do. If you want to be successful at business or, relationships, family, whatever, it's going through that zone where you're pushing yourself to be a better person all the time.
Yeah, or even, if you look at it in business, sure, there's lots of people who wake up and they don't want to go to work that day, but it's like, what's going to drive you to put in your best effort that day when you're not feeling it? And it's that pursuit of a higher cause, or like the standards you've set for yourself, and then being physically dedicated enough to withhold those standards, right? It's discipline. And I think that that's what people sometimes don't realize. They think we are so motivated, and we're way more motivated than the average person, but that doesn't mean that we don't become unmotivated. But when we become unmotivated, we have the discipline to know that the work we're putting in today is for something bigger than just today, right? We're looking down the road. And when we do that, and when you make your bad days, those days with that type of discipline, they're not bad days. You don't go to sleep thinking like, oh man, I had a bad day today. You say, you know what? I put the work in, and in 2 years down the road, 2 months down the road, this is going to pay off. And those are the days you're going to remember when, you're grinding it out at the end of a match, or there's 10 meters left at the end of a swim, or like you're pinned at the end of a match, right? Like that's when you remember those days, and you say, I remember when I found it, and now's the time to take it to that next level.
Yeah. Well, and that's what's super hard for us as humans, I think. It's that instant gratification. We want to be an Olympic medalist right away. We want to be successful at business right away. We don't think about all the effort that goes into it. It's really hard for people to process that aspect of it. They don't want to think about the work. They just want the success.
But I think that that's what the media portrays, right? We get these first time at the Olympics, like 16 years old, especially in swimming, right? Because they can come out super early too. We had Penny Oleksiak. She's like came out of the gates in 2016, boom, Canadian celebrity, won a ton of swimming medals. Those are the stories that we love to glorify. The ones we don't love to glorify is maybe the guy or girl who's been grinding it out for years and, made it to the Olympics. But that's the majority of the athletes, right? Not a lot of us. It didn't just click like that, like you said. If you were to look at me in 2010, when I started, my professional journey, like 2020 Sam looks like he ate 2010 Sam. And it's because the work I had to put in to get to where I am. I'm not naturally gifted in my sport. If you could watch me on the internet or whatever it may be, I don't fit the classical mold of someone in our sport. It took time, and it took me finding my strengths and my confidence in who I am and what I stand for to really kind of magnify what was within me to be able to be great at my sport.
That's awesome. Appreciate you sharing that.
Thanks, buddy.
So, Jessica, I want to dive in a little bit about your story. So you have a book called Unsinkable, and it kind of goes through your story. It's a really unique story, and I don't know how many people on this call have heard it or know much about you. So could you go through a little bit of your journey? Obviously, the condensed version, because your book's fantastic. It goes into a lot of detail. We don't have that time, but just maybe highlight some of the points and how you got to your sport. Because I also know that you wanted to start out as a gymnast, but because of the prosthetic legs were injuring your knees, and it wasn't conducive. So like how did that, going through that and finding your journey, how's that made you into the person you are? I guess let's just talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, for sure. Well, it starts obviously from the beginning. For those who don't know, I was put up for adoption by a 16-year-old Russian girl in Siberia. And just due to a birth defect, she wasn't able to take care of me. So she was just obviously hoping that I'd be adopted by a good family. And during that time, when she put me up for adoption as a baby, there was an American couple here in Baltimore who wanted a larger family. They had 2 children, couldn't have any more. So they looked into adoption. And when they saw a picture of me and my now brother, another little boy in the same orphanage, they were just like, yep, we just knew we were going to adopt both of you. And it's pretty cool because I just think it takes such special people to want to adopt kids, and then to adopt kids with physical disabilities. I was born with something called fibular hemimelia. So basically it means I was missing all the bones in my lower legs. So I did have a foot with 3 toes that they amputated, but I was missing the fibula bone, all those little bones. So when I came to the US at 13 months old, my parents decided to amputate the feet that I had so I could wear the prosthetic legs. And it's pretty cool how everything works out because I ended up having 2 more kids. So I'm one of 6 kids, really big family. But I loved it. I loved being a part of the Long family. And one thing from a very early age, they're not sure if this was just me being this Russian girl with this I was very determined. But I had this fire and I wanted to be like all the other kids. I never wanted something, like missing legs I didn't want it to define me. So my parents put me in sports. I was involved in pretty much everything you can think of. I didn't play soccer. I didn't really like running in my prosthetics. But one thing with growing up, I did really struggle with the whys of my life. Why was I born without legs? And it's pretty cool how everything works out. Here I am now. But it was really hard as a young girl. I remember, there was a time I would look around and no one looked like me. I was the girl with no legs, but I also didn't want to be the girl with no legs. And growing up without legs, or what I was born with, I had surgeries every 6 months. So I've probably had about 25 surgeries total of my legs. And what really helped was sport, being with other kids and not feeling so different, even though I was different. And I first did gymnastics and I loved it. And they put me in gymnastics because when I was recovering from surgeries, the way that I would get around was doing somersaults and flips with this cast. I would have a cast on my leg and I would just flip all around the house to get from room to room. And I love gymnastics, but my parents were really afraid I would damage my knees over time. And when I'm not wearing my prosthetic legs, I just go a little shorter. I walk on my knees. My legs are like really tall shoes. But they sat me down and gave me an ultimatum and said, you can continue in gymnastics, but you have to wear your prosthetic legs. And technology is so incredible now, but back then, if someone stepped on my foot, I would fall right on my leg. So as a little 10-year-old, I remember thinking, it's time to find a new sport. And I'd always loved to swim. So I joined a swim team at the age of 10 and just fell in love with it. And not many people knew I was missing legs until I got out of the pool. And I kept going back to the swim team, the practices, because they treated me like a friend and a competitor first. It's a long story. Sorry.
So you started swimming at 10 and then you were on the U.S. Paralympic team at 12?
Yeah, it's pretty crazy.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it's pretty... I think it came from a place of just wanting to prove my worth. I think there's a whole, lot of emotion just being adopted, right? But I just wanted to prove, even as a little 12-year-old, I had this fire, I also didn't feel like a 12-year-old. I was, at that point, I was having lots of surgeries. I was going through a lot of a lot of tough obstacles that not many 12-year-old kids have to go through. So for me, I thought I was so old, but I fell in love with swimming. I totally understood the water. That's what I love about the sport. You can be this tiny little 12-year-old, as I was, and just understand the water. And I still feel, to this day, I just get the water. I understand the body position, the technique, and that really helped propel me forward to make the team, the U.S. Paralympic team when I was 12. And then somehow to win a gold medal at the age of 12, which was just insane, which set the bar pretty high. But it's been this wild journey, and it's super cool to look back and see how my perspective has shifted and just how it's changed and how I've grown. So
you said, you felt older, because of all the stuff you had to go through, all the surgeries. Was that hard not to feel sorry for yourself, or was there ever a time where you're just like, why me, or yeah, what was that like going through all of that, or was it just normal for you?
Oh goodness, I think it's really hard. I had amazing parents who really taught me from a young age that this is just the way you were born, and you have the story, and you're going to do big things. And that's really great, as telling a little girl that. But when you're 10 years old, and you look around and you don't see anyone who looks like you, it is definitely really hard to think, okay, like, what did I do wrong? And to top it all off, even my birthday comes every 4 years. I'm a leap year baby. So I remember thinking, like, I'm just so different. Like, I don't have a birthday. I don't have legs. I was adopted. Like, what did I do wrong? For sure, you just have those thoughts. And it is pretty cool because, as I've gotten older again, like, I realize that, it's not why me, it's why not me, why not me to do these really cool things. And, I can't help that I don't have legs. There are definitely moments in my life that I really wanted them, and it would have been easier, right? It would have been easy to have legs, and it definitely would have been easier to not have to go through these surgeries. And for me, it's not just a one and done. I had to learn how to rewalk every single time I had a surgery. So that's learning how to go up steps, walking, all of that 25 times. And even today, every day I wake up and I put on 2 prosthetics, and it reminds me that I am different. But at the same time, I've never been someone that wants to blend in. And I do have this story, and I want to live my life to the fullest.
That's cool. Nice. So for everybody watching, I've had the privilege of hearing Jaden sing. We don't have too much time here. I don't know if people want to ask some questions, but I'm going to give the floor over to Jaden for a second, because I think it'd be really cool to put him on the spot and maybe hear a little song. What do you think, Jaden?
Oh, great. I'll give you a little bit, a little song of encouragement. That's the song I really like, actually, and it's helped me out. So I'll give you a verse and a chorus, and I'm out. I'm done. I quit. Never coming back again. All right, that's just how it is. I'm joking. I totally will come back again. All right. All righty. Sometimes it is hard to go on. It's hard to see the reasons to live and breathe and letting love guide the way. But you must hold on, so don't give up. Don't give up. Hold on for one more day. Don't give up. No, don't give up. No, don't give up. Hold on for one more day.
That was amazing. That was awesome. Thanks for sharing that.
No problem.
I appreciate that. How did you get into singing?
So it's a funny story. So when I was younger, I actually couldn't sing worth a lick. And the only way that I could sing, though, is if I sang opera. Like, I couldn't sing like this when I was younger. So I would sing opera. And literally, my mom makes fun of me all the time, especially over Christmas, about how I would sing Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer in an opera, and it just doesn't sound good. And I stopped doing it because when you're around other children, other kids, it's just not cool. It doesn't make you cool. I don't know what it is, but people just don't like opera, which is actually sad because one of my favorite songs is actually an opera song. But yeah, and then I just, my mom was a worship leader, and I got into choir, and they helped me, and yeah, I just had fun with it. And it's sad because it's actually something I had to let go of for a while because wrestling just kind of took over. But it's definitely something I'm glad I got to take with me. It's more of a hobby now, and I enjoy getting to write songs and music and everything. So it's pretty fun.
And another interesting fact that people probably don't know is, sign language, or ASL.
Yeah. So what a lot of people don't know is actually that I actually lost the hearing in my left ear while I was in college, a sophomore in college. And actually then I also, as time went on, I lost some hearing in my right ear as well. And so now I actually, I learned sign language while I was in college. My student advisor put me in ASL classes, and my teacher, Stephanie Logan, was amazing and a huge inspiration to me because she went deaf at the age of 23. And so being able to see someone else with those, with that struggle, and also more extreme, I should say, actually, in my opinion, struggle than mine was, it was amazing to have that as a teacher and to, as a mentor to help learn stuff a lot faster. So I just picked it up, and I would go to sessions afterwards with my TAs and with my teachers, and just constantly try to pick up signs. And it was a lot of fear, but once I actually got involved with the community, the deaf community there in Missouri, and now out here in Colorado, it just, the more I learned, the more my fear was taken away, and I wasn't afraid as much, and my anxiety went down, and it became something I wasn't learning because I was afraid of what would happen. It became something I was learning because I was falling in love with what I was experiencing, and that's something that I truly enjoy, and I'm grateful for.
That's awesome. So, Sam, you said you wanted to sing a little song.
No.
Right before the call, right?
Let's go, Sam. Bring the beer to the game, my man.
My only talent is my cats, and they've been trying to get in the webcast the entire time, but singing is definitely not on my list of talents.
George Harrison and Penny Lane.
Yeah, he's right here. I'll steal him. He loves coming on these things right here. This is George. Can you say hi?
That's George.
That's George Harrison, and Penny Lane, she's a little bit of a scaredy cat, so she's hiding somewhere. But when there's a computer on the table, it's his favorite place to be. So
nice. So we're about ready to wrap it up. Is there anything that you guys want to share around the subject of, mental toughness? Maybe some encouragement to everybody watching who's going through, this odd time in their life, in all of our lives, and trying to cope with what's going around?
Yeah, I mean, I think if people were, listening to all three of us chat, I think something that was apparent between all three stories is a willingness to be vulnerable. And I think that in the situation we're in, we've accepted that. It's part of our sport. When you're out there on center court or main stage, you're exposed, right? You have to be accepting in that situation. You have to be willing to be vulnerable. You're out there in front of everyone. They're seeing all of you, and the judgment or the criticism, it's there. But by being willing to be vulnerable, by being willing to be that person that that you're able to be, that's where you start to really drive and learn those lessons, and develop that mental fortitude. Because by denying whatever feelings you're feeling, it's not doing you any service. And I think they call it like the Olympic mindset, or the athletic mindset, whatever it might be. We're just experts in it because we've been exposed so frequently. Like every single time we step out there, we get exposed. Think about the average person at their jobs. You might go into these situations once a week, once a month, once a year, right? This is us every single time we step out there. And by looking at it that way and taking it as an opportunity to learn, I think that that's where you really develop that, mental fortitude to be able to perform day in and day out. So, something I've always encouraged everyone, whether it be youth that are starting to play sport or people in the community, is that embrace that vulnerability, because it's only an opportunity for you to learn. And by learning, you're only going to get better at whatever you're trying to push yourself through.
Jessica, you want to say something?
Yeah, I'll jump in. I really loved what you had to say there. I, definitely through this time, for sure, an opportunity to learn. And I really love that. I think all of us athletes can definitely relate. I've also really been focusing on just being still and in the moment, and, just again, controlling what we can control. And I think through that right now, that's really helped me, is just, I love being busy as an athlete. I'm always traveling. I'm constantly going back and forth to swim practice. And right now, just having this moment to be still here in quarantine and with someone that I love, my husband. It has been tough, and allowing myself to feel those tough moments, but also I think it's been really cool because I just have learned to really appreciate my sport as an athlete, how much I can't wait to get back into the pool, and how, reaching out to other athletes and checking in and seeing how they're doing and realizing that we really are in this together. And I just think it's been a really cool opportunity to just be really just thankful and just trying to remain positive through this tough time has helped.
Thank you. Jaden, anything you want to share?
I think, one, I love what our other two guys have had to say. I mean, that's right on the money, but I think also like with what's going on right now, and this is just like me spreading advice, because I know a lot of people are struggling right now. And like I've been asked a lot about like, well, what do you do to stay so positive? I think, well, the first thing I do is I wake up. I wake up. And I think that's very important, because the first step to doing anything right in your life is waking up in the morning. If you don't do that, it's hard to do anything else. So that's the first step. All right. And then the second step after that, as I get dressed, I don't get in my sweatpants. I know some of you guys, I don't get in sweatpants. I don't get in like a comfy. I get in my jeans. I put on a nice shirt. I get up like I'm getting ready to go through my day. And it's just, and I have a list of things that I want to get done or that I look to do, and I go through it. And I just scratch something off, or and I still do some workouts here and there, not as intense anymore. I don't have anybody else to wrestle, and everyone thinks I'm crazy when I do my shadow wrestling outside. So I cut back a little bit. But I mean, overall, I wake up and I get my list. I make my list of things I can do, scratched off, get to see me being, I don't know, me being, I guess, progressive, like I'm doing something, and that way it's just like I don't feel that, oh, I'm not getting anything done, I'm just sitting around. That's a big thing. I think also in this time, a lot of people are having to learn or figure out who they are, because I think a big thing about this is that since things have been taken away, like for Jessica and Sam and myself, our sports are gone right now. Like we're not, like we may be working out, but we're not. I don't think Sam just talked about how he might be getting arrested if he goes and plays volleyball, does his sport, right? Like, and Jessica's like, I don't have a pool to get into, and I don't have anyone to wrestle, and I'm not allowed to just randomly go out and grab people that are at the park, because that's just weird, and that's not going to be taken very well. Okay, so our sports are gone, and so a lot of people are having to figure out who they are, and it's hard because in a society where a lot of times people take what they do and they put that as their answer for who they are. Well, like I'm a wrestler, so like I wrestle, so I'm a wrestler. That's who I am. And that is something that not only athletes, but I think people in general are having a struggle with. And I think that a big thing is like and it's not a bad thing, because I think this is really good. I think things you got to cut yourself down to when you're at your bare minimum, and I cut everything away from you. What are you? And I think that the first answer needs to be this: one, I am enough. That's it. That's the first one. And then secondly, like then I go into this, like I'm loved by my family. I have a family that's wonderful, and I love them. My other one is like there's no particular order, but like except for that one. But the other one's like, I'm a Christian. I have faith in my Christ and my Lord, and this is something that I truly believe in, and I pour my heart and soul in. No matter what, that's with me. Period. The end. And then it's like in my bare minimum, no matter what, I love helping people. I love being able to do what I can, whether it's doing videos like this, getting to talk about our stories, or a team asks me, hey, can we do a Zoom with you and everything? Like that's something I love to do. So, whenever I can start, really breaking down, like at my bare minimum, things are still pretty great. And I think that when I take away these things with whether it be wrestling, medals, and accomplishments and stuff, shoot, man, it's just, I still love the life and the person that I am, and I still strive to be the best person that I can be. And I think that everyone else should do that as well. But I think everyone needs to understand that you are enough, and that's the first step in all that.
It's amazing. Look, our time's out, but I really appreciate each one of you guys taking out time. I don't want to fool myself or anybody else that you guys have nothing else to do. I know you're still busy. All of you guys are probably on Zoom calls, like Jaden was saying, constantly, whether it's talking to athletes, media, whoever, other sponsors. So I really appreciate you guys taking this time and love having you guys part of the USANA athlete group.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Nate, do you want to say anything before we wrap this up?
Just sitting here and being able to listen to your stories, I think it just shows, because I think I fall into one of those people that just think, watching the Olympics and watching these elite athletes perform, saying, geez, these guys are just great. They're not normal people, but being able to hear your stories and actually like the behind the scenes, right? We see you and we see the athletes when they're in their prime and all the practice. We don't think about everything that happens behind the scenes. We just see the prime, top shape performance that happens. And so I think just being able to hear that you go through struggles, and I like, Sam, that you mentioned you have a mindset coach and you have somebody that you pay to help you be in the proper mindset to be able to be at peak performance. And so I think that translates to us. And in terms of with USANA and doing a business, like, yeah, we're going to have people that have success. There's going to be people that shoot up to success really fast. But the grind and just being willing to be consistent and being willing to make those improvements and being willing to go all in everything that you do, I think is a huge overarching theme between each of your different stories. And so I echo what Jason said, and I appreciate you spending the last hour with us. I think the information that you gave us was so invaluable, and it's always good to hear from the athletes that take the products and what you guys like, and to kind of develop a better connection with you guys. So thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks so much for your time. We'll see you later.
Okay, thanks. Bye.
Bye. Okay, so still recording? Oh, there we go.
Yep, we're
Cool.
good.
Hey, thanks, guys. Thanks, Sam.
we
Really
have B-roll
appreciate it, buddy.
gold. Dude, you missed it after the Spartan one. We all stayed on for like a while and chatted. It was really funny.
And that's why I didn't want to jump off because I didn't realize that was going to happen. If I would have realized that, I would have jumped back in the call, but I didn't want to be on it and be one of those little squares, right? When I'm just like, oh, hey, yay.
It was so funny. You could because obviously they did it with like a production company that like ran it, right? Yeah. So whoever was the guy running the production company, well, at the very end, like his screen popped up, right? So you could see like him and what he was doing, and he was just like slamming beers, like making this thing go at the same time, right? It was so funny. But yeah, it's pretty hilarious because Alex skis with a guy that that trains out of our training center. So I wanted to chat base with him. And then I sent him that video of I sent it to you too, right? Yeah, because you commented on it. The video of me skiing like in grade 10 or whatever. Yeah. So I sent it to him and I was like, I'm coming for you. Like next Olympics, it's on. I'm going to switch sports. So.
That's awesome.
So funny.
Cool.
So.
Well, hey, I really appreciate you doing this, buddy. And I need to set up another Zoom call with a bunch of us so we can all catch up again and just chat.
Yeah,
no
perfect,
agenda,
man.
just hang out. So,
yeah.
All right. Thanks, buddy. Have a good one.
So much.
See you, Nate.
Thanks, Jason. See ya.